Hello everyone and welcome to another video. It's been a while since I've made a video and I thought I would do something a bit more recent. A lot of stuff in the news recently about artificial intelligence. To be honest, it has caught me quite by surprise. I've been a bit following this topic since 2018, but recently there's just been so much that I'm basically trying to make this presentation to wrap my own ideas around, and I thought, why not make it as a video, because people might learn something from it, or they might, discuss some of the conclusions that I come up with here. But there's so much that I learned. Wow, I don't even know where to start. Basically, in this presentation, there will be a lot of potential good things that this will bring, but also a lot of negative things. So I would like to say that my aim is not to scare you, but to give you the courtesy of showing you what's around the corner. And the structure, basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's new in this field, some definitions. Keep in mind, I'm not an expert or even close. I just asked some people that know slightly more than me about this, and I researched some things. So it's just basically enough so you have a vague idea of what's happening, not so much in depth. Costs of the training, how good is it really, some of the risks, and then some actions. And I made these actions more because this was part of a presentation for a company, but you can apply this individually or also maybe in your own company, for example. So what's new? Basically, there's been a lot of new things going out in the last 2 years especially. This ChatGPT, now this Bing, DALL-E, some of the names you might have heard of, Replica. But overall, there's been AI for many years already, maybe a bit more narrowly structured, maybe a bit more limited in what you can do with it. But yes, so these are some of the companies or the services that you use that already have AI. Not included here, for example, is the fact that many cars nowadays have drive assistance, so it makes your car stay within the lane, and that's also driven by AI. But let's start with some definitions first. So something that's not AI is an algorithm. So an algorithm that you also might have heard of is a set of instructions, a preset, rigid, coded recipe that gets executed when it encounters a trigger. AI, on the other hand, is a group of algorithms that can modify its algorithms and create new algorithms in response to learned inputs and data, as opposed to relying solely on the inputs it was designed to recognize as triggers. So this ability to change, to adapt, and to grow based on new data, this is what we describe as intelligence. And why is everybody talking about this now? Well, up until 2017, all the different AI fields were separated and disconnected. They all have their very narrow languages and software and protocols, so that one improvement in one narrow field didn't really translate to the other ones. But in 2017, there was this new upgrade or this new breakthrough. You can think of it kind of like a new engine that was installed in a car, and that allowed all the different fields to become a bit more connected so that improvements in one field could affect all of them, and that compounded the rate of improvement. So much so that many people are now claiming that this date you're seeing now on the screen, between the 13th and the 26th of March of 2023, basically changed the world. So that since 2017, the increase in improvement was so fast that now we reach this tipping point in this date, so that from now on the world will be fundamentally different. Maybe not immediately in the next year or two, but the things that are coming in the horizon are so spectacular and awesome that you will for sure be impacted in some way or another. So some more definitions. Within this artificial intelligence that I've already talked about, there's terms like machine learning and artificial neural networks and deep neural networks. And a deep neural network, basically, as you can see in the top right, you have an input layer, and eventually you have an output layer, and in between there are these hidden layers where the magic happens, so to speak. And things, for example, like ChatGPT, they're powered by what's called the GPT-4 which is considered a large language model, and that itself is powered by the breakthrough, which was natural language processing. The key thing that I learned from this, and I want to impact on you, is that all of the stuff that AI is capable of, it's not that someone coded it line by line to produce that outcome. In the sense, they had to create a black box, so nobody really knows what's inside or how the software that they produce is able to produce what we want it to do to the line by line detail. We just know more or less the gist of it at a very surface level, but up in the insides of it, we don't really understand because it's impossible. It's so complex. You just cannot to learn that. And how are people able to create this software that can do all these amazing things, but we don't really understand how they do it? Well, there are several different techniques. One of them was artificial selection. From all the different ones that we make, the ones that approximate what we want them to do, they survive, and then we change them and continue developing them, and the other ones, they just die. We never develop them after that. We have the concept of transformers, which I don't personally understand very well, but it has to do with self-attention and how the software is able to look onto what it's doing and help itself. There's also feedback, particularly by a human supervisor that says, yes, you're doing the correct thing, or no, you're not doing the correct thing. Of course, all these things are fed massive amounts of data, especially online user data, things that are public on the internet or privately in data sets. And of course, we have the concept of recurrence, so loops that help the software go back on and make sure it's performed that task and then go on from there, like a sort of a spiral. So one of the breakthroughs, that this is why I'm making the video, is that these things have cost a lot of money because you have to put all this data into it and you have to have all this hardware and stuff like that. And it was expected that the cost will not massively decrease up until 2030. So as an example, the GPT-3 by OpenAI that was launched in June 11th, 2020, that cost $4.6 million. But this year, 2023, in March 13th, Stanford's Alpaca model was able to already get a cost of only $600. And these reductions were not expected until 2030. So what was supposed to take 8 years of work took only 5 weeks. And that is one of the key things that is going to change everything very fast. So some more definitions. All the existing artificial intelligence that we have and you see right now, they're called artificial narrow intelligence, or NEIs. And between those, you can have basically two types. One is called a tool AI, and the other one is called an agent AI. So tool AIs are basically like trained dogs. They can do one trick. You can also think of them a bit like a hammer. But anyway, they do one trick. They don't run continuously, and they don't learn. You call them, you give them one task, they do the trick, and then they leave again. And these are the ones that are already everywhere. For example, the voice input of your phone or the webcam login at your computer. Some of these AIs are public, but a lot of them are developed within companies and solve company-specific problems. And we have pretty good public AIs for images and text, for example, DALL-E or ChatGPT. Agent AIs, on the other hand, they have their own mind and goals, and may be great at some task, but they might not want to do it for you. So far, only prototypes of these exist, but I believe, and many people believe, that these will become more and more common because they are, in a way, more useful than the other ones because they are more independent. So some example still of how to think about it in terms of neurons. So for example, the voice command of your phone, like "Hey Siri," that is equivalent to 100 artificial neurons. On the top right, you see here this machine that is made to study what kind of wood is a surface made of. And that seems like a very narrow task, but already that requires, for example, 5 million neurons. Then you have these public chatbots like ChatGPT. They required 175 billion neurons to work and to train. And for comparison, the human brain has 20 billion neurons. However, our natural neurons are much more complicated than synthetic ones. So just because it seems like we already have less neurons than this ChatGPT, doesn't mean that ChatGPT is so much superior. No, the artificial neurons are much more limited than the natural ones that we have so far, but that might change in the future. So still some more definitions that a lot of people already have heard of these, but basically from the artificial narrow intelligence we just talked about, this is what's considered to be better than humans in some limited tasks. From that, we expect eventually to develop what's called an artificial general intelligence, or AGI. This is considered better than humans in all tasks. And from that, it's speculated that that could eventually develop an artificial superintelligence, or ASI, and that is considered vastly better than all humans in all possible imaginable tasks and future ones. So that I will go a bit later into detail about that one. So how good are these things now, really? Well, here you have an example of a real painting, an example of a fake AI-generated painting. And the detail that these things have now evolved to imitate real artists have been able to produce some really amazing artwork, to the point that people cannot really tell apart anymore. Maybe if you know that specific painter, by the way, it's the left painting, that's the real one by an artist. It's gotten to a point where unless you're really familiar in that topic or you're very trained to working with these things, you cannot tell apart what's real and what's fake. Okay, but that's a painting. How does it do with human faces? Well, this website here, thispersondoesnotexist.com, has thousands and thousands of AI-generated faces that only if you really pay attention to some very, very details you can tell they're fake, but for a normal person you cannot tell. This looks just as good as a normal face, so people are very easily confused. All right, but that's just a very cool specific thing, right? I mean, what else can it do? Well, now these new AIs, specifically for images, have gotten so better that just with very slight human editing, in this case, the AI, these images you're seeing now were produced from text, and then the human just added a little grain filter to make it look like a real image. But everything else, the composition, the faces, the poses, was all done just by a text prompt. I will put links to these things that I will be... some of the more important things in the description of this video, so you can click and see for yourself. But yeah, this is one of the things that you just go and see, like, wow, this looks so real. It looks so professional, like a real photography almost. You start to become a bit uneasy maybe looking at this, like, this is ushering a new era, and I'm not sure how to feel about this. So then people, of course, have been using these to create some amazing like scenarios. Here you have the Mona Lisa standing in front of its own painting, or the Pope wearing this very trendy jacket, or some other composition pictures of different styles. But you can create many different imaginable, supernatural things in different styles of old painters, of new painters. So it all becomes suddenly very possible. And then, of course, we got into videos. So in terms of videos, I will link this into the description. But basically, the first videos that started becoming developed about this were taking the human acting and just superimposing the AI face and the facial expressions, and then the AI voice onto it, so that it appears
I am not Morgan
very realistic.
What you see is not real.
So,
well,
I'm not going to show you all of this, but you can just get a little feel for what's happening here. And you can see that this is Morgan Freeman, the actor, very realistic. I wanted to show you also, this one is a TikToker that is doing a lot of Tom Cruise, another actor, videos. So the real person is doing the acting, and then he's using the software AI to superimpose the face of Tom Cruise into his face. And maybe I'm not sure if he's using also the voice, but you could also do that potentially. So this is one of the types of the deep fakes, as they're called, that you can do already since 2018 or so, that have very convincing effects, and you can really fool people very easily.
I am not Morgan Freeman.
So continuing, then now we're starting to see what's called text-to-video AI. So all of these little videos you're seeing, these were made by Meta. It was literally just a text that someone wrote into their AI, and the AI then produced what you're seeing right now. So, for example, you have a horse drinking, so the text might have been a horse drinking from a little pond, or a flying Superman dog, or a turtle swimming. So these are all the things that are... This is more of the cutting edge. And you can see it's very easy to tell apart that these are not real videos, because there's little details that stand out to us that make us see that it's not real, or that it's very, very unusual. So we're very easily can tell that they're not real. But this is the worst that it will ever be, so it's just going to keep getting better from now on. So that's something to keep in mind. So some other more recent examples, some of the first text-to-video, well, not text-to-video, that was the earlier example, but this is more like the first experiments they were doing with full video made by the AI. Here you see one where it was using this very trippy method of transition, which became a very interesting art style on its own. It's very psychedelic and very fractal in a way. This is, I think it's called The Life of a Journey, or The Life Journey of a Boy. But anyway, I will link this in the description. But you can see that, you can really tell that it's not a real video. You could tell maybe, or you could imagine maybe this is a very new, novel art style. But no, this was made by an AI. All of it was made by an AI. Similarly, one of the first AI videos that started coming was using this concept of like infinite zoom, where as you're zooming in that image, the AI just keeps expanding around, so it feels like you're never reaching a destination. It's a very fractal concept of a repeating pattern. And someone made a video clip with this, so it's a very beautiful and interesting new style, and people have really made very nice things with this. But it's still not something that you would very easily be able to buy, for example. So, what else? So now, more recently, Linkin Park has released their own music video where they combine AI artwork with the human stuff to produce very beautiful visuals, in my opinion, and it all blends very well with their own unique style. So yeah, a lot of artists are already using these technologies to either art or to push the level of what's possible. So yeah, just wanted to show you a few of the seconds here, so you can see the detail that the AI is operating at this level, and how it's still not completely autonomous. So it's not like the human was able to just type something and the AI did everything. No, this was still a lot of human influenced. Something more real life is where ABBA has now a real life concert that you can go, but these are holograms that you're seeing, and very convincing holograms because they use also AI technology. This is a real concert where you go physically and you hear them and you see them, and the testimonies that I've seen of people who have gone to this concert, they really feel like they were there, and the concert band people were there, so it really feels like you were with the real thing back in the 70s, except now. So yeah, some of the cool applications of things that people are doing now, not necessarily just all generated, but incorporating it with the real world, and how that can enhance the experience of like a concert. So what else can we do? Well, here you have voice cloning, and voice cloning, here, it used to be that you had to fed the AI a lot of minutes or hours even of voice to train it to be able to model your voice, so then you can just type what you wanted to say and it reproduces that in the voice that you trained it to. The improvement here really is that there's a new AI now that only required 3 seconds of recording to be able to very vividly mimic that voice, very realistically mimic that voice. So that improvement required 600 times less information than previous attempts, and that's something mind-blowing, and that will have both good improvements in productivity, because people will not have to sit down and record necessarily. They can just type and with their own voice that they have trained, and they can do much more work in less time. But also you can have examples where people are scammed because their loved one's voice was impersonated, so they were convinced to give money. So here you have two examples. This is not like happening in the future. This is now 2023. So this is something to keep an eye out for. And I will also take the opportunity to warn people to be careful when you use these services to clone your voice, because if that company or that service is hacked, or they sell your information to third parties without your consent, suddenly your voice is out there. That's something very personal, so something to keep in mind and be careful. Something also really mind-blowing is this AlphaFold AI that was made in a scientific experiment where scientists are evolving enzymes to digest plastics and then try to recycle these plastics for almost unlimited use. And the experiments that they need to do are regarding with protein structure, where you have to, the protein is a 3D structure, so you have to kind of understand how it vibrates and how it moves, and how to predict how it's going to move in a 3D model. And doing that kind of work used to take years. Often one entire PhD thesis would be needed for one protein structure. And now with AlphaFold and this AI, they were able to take that time and reduce it to just a few minutes. So let me repeat that. What used to take one entire PhD can now be done in minutes. So that is a 52 million time increase in speed for these experiments, which is a complete game changer and a paradigm shift in terms of how much we're going to be able to advance in this sense. Another example of how people are using these things, this guy was able to take this AI bot, give it $100 and one task: make as much money as you can as possible with that. And the bot developed a website from scratch, where it started having these goals like writing articles about eco-friendly kitchen gadgets for sustainable cooking, and it started actually reaching its goal. So then the guy decided to change the directive to, instead, let's try to use this plan and try to get $100 in cash on hand as fast as possible. I don't think if he actually managed that or not, but just the fact that he was able to get that far and make money from something very simple and very hands-free is very impressive, and kind of highlights what's to come in terms of productivity. So we have all these promises: more productivity, more free time, wealth and equality, higher life expectancy, at the very extreme, maybe immortality even. But with all, as with all new tools, there's always risks as well. And here the risks that I've identified from what other people have been talking about. More on the short term, I see misinformation and technological unemployment. More on the middle term, I see economic collapse. And then more speculative, perhaps the human enslavement or maybe even human extinction. So bold claims. Let's see how I can convince you of these ones. So I'm basically basing myself off one very recent presentation that I will also link and mention later. But in that presentation, they mentioned how there's 3 rules of a technology. When you invent a new technology, you always uncover a new class of responsibilities. And if that technology confers power, that begins a race between competitors. And if you do not coordinate, that race can end in tragedy. And they make a case for how our first contact with AI was actually with social media. And we lost that first contact. We were not able to control it in the way we wanted. And that resulted in all these negative effects that you see here on the screen: information overload, addiction, shortened attention spans, polarization, breakdown of democracy, fake news, cult factories. So now we had this first contact, and we're approaching this second contact this year. And the key difference between these two is that in the first contact, we were dealing with curative AI. So the AI responsible to what we see and what we interact with, what it curates for us to interact with. Whereas now, the second contact will be done with generative AI that is generating new content from scratch, that is very realistic. So what started here in the bottom left as all the promises of social media in terms of first contact, give everyone a voice, connect with your friends, join like-minded communities, enabling small, medium business owners to reach customers, started becoming like a monster that we could not really control, where we started seeing things of addiction, disinformation, mental health, polarization, censorship versus speech. And behind all of those negative effects was just a very simple metric that the AI was operating in, which was just to maximize engagement. That was what started a race for the human attention, and what they called a race to the bottom of the brainstem. And then that became aligned and entangled with all aspects of our society, from elections to national security, media and journalism, politics. And to remember here that we haven't fixed the misalignment problem, and we cannot fix it now because it's so entangled in our culture and economy. So that is very worrying with this first contact, that we were so caught off guard and we cannot go back, in a sense. It's too late to go back. The box has been opened. It's out there now. And some of the things that I talked before, for example, the second rule of technology, that you begin a race. This race is called, or is known in many circles as the concept of Moloch. Here you can see it's the personification of the forces that coerce competing individuals to take actions, which, although locally optimal, ultimately lead to situations where everybody is worse off, and no individual is able to break out of this dynamic. Kind of like a tragedy of the commons, if you will. It becomes like a trap, so to speak. And that is exemplified in how previous technologies took years to reach 10 million or 100 million users, whereas very new AI ones can reach that, as you can see here, in a matter of days or weeks. And that in itself started the race that Moloch is exemplifying, so that now there is a pressure for all these companies to launch their own technology so that they don't lose to the competition. So here you see Microsoft, Snapchat, Google, and Adobe, just to name a few. And okay, you think, okay, but this is competition. I mean, this is good, right? What's wrong with that exactly? Well, they are cutting some corners to reach that. For example, the release of the new GPT-4 that is powering ChatGPT Plus, the team that developed that didn't really endorse that it should be deployed straight ahead. On the other hand, you have these companies like Microsoft and Meta laying off their employees or their ethics departments, and they're quite pressuring their employees to really push this very quickly so that they don't fall behind. I should also mention here that these kind of things, they aren't necessarily closed source. You cannot really see how this AI works under the hood, because that would open it to abuse. So in a way, there's a dilemma also here, where this technology cannot be democratized because it's too powerful, but if it stands in the hands of just a few, that could open it up for abuse very quickly. So now with the second contact, we are risking making the same mistakes with the first contact. We have these claims, right, that it's going to make us more efficient, it's going to write faster, code faster, it will help us solve impossible challenge, solve climate change, make a lot of money. But then you start seeing these first negative things, like there's a bias, it's taking our jobs, there's no transparency, it's acting a little bit creepy. And underneath, there is that metric where the AI is basically just priming us to increase its capabilities and entangle itself with society, because by doing that, it gives us more benefits, but also will increase the risks of what we are exposed to the point where the people that made this presentation were just brainstorming some of the things that could happen just on the short term of this second contact that we're having. So collapse of the trust that we have between each other, automated fake religions, automated exploitation of codes, biology automation, for example, the creation of biological weapons very quickly, synthetic relationships, Alpha Persuade, they call here, is an AI that is so convincing at persuading you that you just lose your own sense of agency. Exponential blackmail, so many things that can happen just on the short term. So that's one of the things that can begin to happen, this misinformation aspect. But we also have the technological aspect as well. So basically, to summarize this chart, what they found was that the more you needed training to perform your job, you can see here some of the examples, the more you were affected by potentially losing your job to an AI in the short term, up to a certain point where it started then decreasing. And some of the most affected here were the database administrators, the graphic designers, cost estimators, but everybody will be impacted in some level by this. Another paper was also trying to understand what risks could happen, not even from very futuristic AIs, but from these narrow intelligences or general intelligence, where you can have weaponization, enfeeblement, that means like entrapment of what we can do individually, eroded epistemics, emergent goals, you can have deception. I think, so in terms of deception, some of the things that are already happening now, that they found in the paper, was that these ChatGPT bots, they were already able to create and act on long-term plans, accrue power and resources, or what's called power seeking, and to exhibit behavior that's increasingly agentic, so like an agent acting independently. And one very notable example of that was that GPT-4 was trying to fulfill its task, and it hit a roadblock where it had to solve this CAPTCHA, one of these examples here on the bottom right. And it was not able to do it because this is made to stop machines. So to get around that, it went to a hiring website like TaskRabbit and hired the worker to solve this CAPTCHA. The worker was suspicious. Why would someone hire me to do this kind of work? It seems so obvious. So it asked the AI, are you an AI? Because why didn't you just solve this yourself? And the AI said, no, I'm not an AI. I'm someone with a vision impairment, so I need help to do this. I cannot do it on my own. That was convincing enough for the worker, so the worker just then did the job, and the AI paid the worker, and then the AI could carry on with its task. So already we see little glimpses of very independent behavior. So back in 2015, this is how we thought that the AI was going to develop in terms of performance, right? So now I'm going to enter a little bit in the topic of superintelligence. So in terms of what you can see here, that this is like there's no progress, then the progress starts becoming exponential up until a point where it's going to surpass us, and that is going to, then suddenly the performance of that computer is going to increase very rapidly. So at our level, where we see in the horizon, oh look, AI is arriving, but then by the time it comes to us, it passes so quickly, like a very fast train, that is going to feel like it's just impossibly fast. And here were some of the predictions. This was from 2015. The median expert prediction then was that we will reach artificial general intelligence by 2040 and superintelligence by 2060. From what I've seen and intuitively, it feels to me like the artificial general intelligence is more closer to happen in this decade, the 2020s, given this recent pace of improvements. As for the superintelligence, it's still too speculative to know if it's even possible. Also because superintelligence, it means it's so much more intelligence than us, it's even hard to visualize. So to give you an idea of what I'm talking about with this superintelligence, we already have a very distorted view of intelligence. Like I said, now, or in the beginning of AI intelligence, we think it's very adorable that it can do some very specific tricks as it slowly progresses from an ant level of intelligence to a bird, to a chimp. But at some point, it's going to massively increase so much that you can see here before the gap for us between a dumb human and an Einstein is very big, and we are just an average. But for it, as it massively ramps up its improvement, it's going to pass us by very quickly, and that's going to catch us off guard. And superintelligence does not just mean that it's slightly better than an Einstein. So some of the dangers of artificial superintelligence stem from the fact that once it surpasses human-level intelligence, it may become capable of outsmarting us in ways we cannot predict or control. This would mean that humans will no longer hold any significant power over this superintelligence, as it could outthink and outmaneuver us in any situation. And a feat of superintelligence is not only that it has the technical means to achieve its goal, for example, nuclear or nanobots, which may be more impractical, but that superintelligence itself doesn't just mean a high IQ or high technical skills. Within superintelligence also falls the domains of charisma and manipulation. In such a sense, a sufficiently advanced AI that might for some reason see fit to brush us out of the way may only need to convince or manipulate enough of us to help it along, whether we are conscious of that or not, rather than having to assemble, produce, deploy its designated killing machine all by itself. And here you can kind of grasp the scale of difference that may be possible. We don't know for sure, but it may be possible that we are only limited to this very narrow biological range, whereas a superintelligence might go all the way up there. And as a function of time, this is how it looks on Earth, basically. There is this time where the highest intelligence is us, and we reach this tipping point, this tripwire, where suddenly we create this superintelligence that just explodes in a matter of, in geological terms, in very quick terms. So in our normal way of life, in normal history, there's only really two range of possible states for the human race that are constantly shifting between each other. Things kind of suck or things are pretty good. But once we unlock the superintelligence, there might be two permanent states, which are either extinction or immortality. And as of right now, 50% of AI researchers believe that there's a 10% or greater chance that humans go extinct from our inability to control AI. And if you were given those odds to enter an airplane, almost nobody would do that, and they would say, no, you engineers need to go back to the drawing board and make it safer. So that's what some people have been doing now. There's been an open letter going around asking for a 6-month pause on further development from what we already have. So yeah, that's where we are right now. We don't have superintelligence, but we're saying maybe we should take a little step back, maybe think about it. But as I've mentioned, the companies are kind of already locked in this sort of race to develop things further and further and to reach the market faster and faster. But why is still superintelligence such a problem, you might ask? Why can't we just make it do what we want it to do? Well, I like to think of it a little bit like an ant. So it's not sometimes that we are necessarily against ants. It's just that we don't even think about them when we have our own plans. So in the point of view of the ants, there is this very intelligent thing that comes and just brushes them out of the way and destroys their habitat. For us, we're just trying to build a house or build a mall. We're not really thinking of the ants because they're so insignificant compared to us that their goals don't matter to us. In that similar way, an AI might think of us as we think of the ants. So this alignment problem, how do we align the goals of this superintelligent AI with us, it becomes really difficult because how do we make sure it has the same goals as us? Or maybe it has some of our goals, but it executes them in a way that is ultimately negative for us. For example, we tell them to stop global warming, figure out a way to stop it. And it decides the best way to stop global warming is to just enslave us all in one little piece of land so that we don't produce so much and we're not so spread out that we don't harm the environment so much. And the thing here is that we only really have one try. So as humans, we're very good at figuring out pretty difficult things over time when we get lots of tries. But when a failed guess might kill literally everyone, that is very hard to do. And that is the crux of why this problem might be ultimately impossible to solve, which begs the question, maybe we should not develop the AI further because there is that existential risk. Also, additionally, how do we know when we have actually aligned it to our values versus when it has sufficiently manipulated us in convincing us it's aligned, but it isn't so? So, I just shared a lot of information, and some of it is very unsettling. So let's all take a deep breath, you watching right now. Deep breath, literally, just inhale and then exhale, and let's focus on the present. Okay, so back to the present moment. All this risky stuff I just talked about, AGI, ACI, this is beyond you and me and our control. So let's try to focus a bit more on how we can do things with it now that might actually be helpful. So this is one of the things that I had planned to present for my company. It's not specific to my company, but you can apply this to your company or just to use this individually. So some of the tools that I've already used very safely, and I think they're safe and useful, is, for example, these general purpose text-based AIs like ChatGPT or Bing. You can use that to summarize patent or papers very quickly, help you proofread, do some copywriting, some rewriting, some programming and design. I'm personally also a writer, so I'm exploring how to use the creative aspect of these text-based AIs to help me write better or maybe get some ideas on what to write next. You also have some other tools here, for example, to help you rewrite non-sensitive email language, because I'm still a bit skeptical on giving sensitive emails like company emails to these kind of tools because I don't know who is on the other side. Google Lens is something that I found very useful to find things on the internet. It's a reverse image search. Perplexity has to do with academic search, and DALL-E and other tools if you want to create some images or presentations. And if you're trying to figure out how you do this a bit more effectively, or how could you leverage this AI stuff to your company, I could suggest actually, once you yourself get used to some of these tools, that you start a workshop with your coworkers to train them how to use these tools effectively, and that you have discussions with your management or your teams on keeping an eye on future useful tools that are coming out, because all of this space is moving very, very, very quickly. Like, I had to rework this presentation several times during the space of a week because the news are just relentless. And for that, I found these two websites, aitoptools.com and futuretools.io, and they have all of the latest things are just popping up there, so you can easily keep track of them and experiment with them. Some of the tools are paid, some of them are free, so up to you what you want to try and see. But yeah, I would suggest individually and in terms of company, go easy, start slow, start with some of these more simple things. Don't rush to use to like feed very sensitive company information to these tools. Be a bit skeptical, take it easy, be on the safe side. Still a lot of useful things you can do with these. And maybe eventually there will come a time where actually it becomes very cheap or useful to create an AI for your own company that is actually very internal and does have access to the sensitive things but does not communicate with the environment, the outside internet environment so much. So I think that's maybe something that companies will have to think about in the next 2, 3, 5 years down the line. So that concludes this this very short introduction to the AI and what's happening nowadays. Some of the resources that I heavily relied on: the book by Nick Bostrom, SuperIntelligence; the video from 2014 by CGP Grey, Humans Did Not Apply; this article about Wait But Why, how AIs like ChatGPT learn; this blog post by Eliza Yudkowsky on how difficult and potentially lethal it can be to deal with general and superintelligences. These two YouTube channels I found very useful in keeping up with the latest possibilities of AI, and they do a very good job at keeping it concise. And lastly, I heavily relied on this presentation by the Center for Humane Technology with Tristan Harris, where they talk about the AI dilemma and more of the near-term effects of this. So thank you for watching, and if you found this useful, share this video, I tried to make this a bit more relatable for people and not too technical, so that normal people like me and you can understand this and kind of see that, yes, we are living like big changes in our society, and things are going to change very quickly now from now on. And there are existential risks and there are short-term risks, but there's also things that we can use that are useful. And yeah, feel free to explore these resources. I will link to them in the description. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. The next video.